Have you ever heard the term polycrisis? Have you heard the term gray swan event or black swan event? Well, we're in that time where a polycrisis is taking place across the world that affects America. Remember, America is the biggest player in the world when it comes to trade, when it comes to relations, when it comes to influence. Every aspect of our life and every aspect of the world's life really looks upon America, its politicians, its leaders, to set precedents for the world. Well, today we're going to be talking about how the fact of the polycrisis and what it will do to America, what it will do to the new leadership coming in with Trump. Is it going to change how he looks at the world? Is it going to change how he chooses to be America first? And why is it important? A polycrisis tends to happen when everyone is wanting to destabilize. The world is wanting to destabilize a situation. That's the point of crises upon crises upon crises. Today we're going to talk about just that. Now, these stories are all things that are in the news. Again, not about fear. It's about what is absolutely happening right now. It is a gray swan. Now, the difference in a gray swan and a black swan is the gray swan is a lot of things taking place. The black swan is the thing that happens out of the gray swan that all of a sudden changes. Today we're going to talk about that. Are we looking at a new black swan event? Are we looking at a polycrisis situation for Trump to have to face? What could disrupt his plan for America first and more of an isolationist, get our economy back on track? What does a managerial class or the establishment need to do? They need a polycrisis. Let's talk about these today and how important it is. And you tell me, after this video, I want you to watch the whole video. You tell me, am I wrong? Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new to our channel, thank you for being here. We ask that you give us a thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe. It means the world to me, and we humbly ask that you do that because that helps us spread our message across this platform. Our goal is to grow our platform, not for any reason other than sharing faith, sharing wisdom, and hopefully a common sense approach to you and your family making it through this crazy world. Now today we're talking about polycrisis. Now what does that terminology actually mean? What is a gray swan? Let's go over the terminology first, and then we're going to discuss exactly what these things are. This is an article that starts off from Zero Hedge. It says a gray swan is circling. History is either one thing after another of chaotic collections and quote-unquote random events. Or is there a connection between these events that we cannot readily see? Meaning, are these things planned events? Are they just naturally occurring? Are they a mix of both? Now, as someone who believes in faith and of course God, I do believe there are some things that we can't control. We understand that. That's part of being in a fallen world. We understand that, especially as a Christian. However, there are things that are being implemented that add to maybe some of these other events. So we may have natural occurring events, and then we may have events that are things that are planned or things that happen because of what humans do. Now, what do I mean? Think about Wuhan. Okay, what happened there? That was not naturally occurring like they said. It was actually more to it. Now, sometimes storms are not naturally occurring. Sometimes they are. Sometimes we don't understand tsunamis. Sometimes we don't understand earthquakes. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Some things we understand, some things we don't. Some things are planned, some things are natural. Well, a gray swan is saying, okay, we're going to see all these events, the natural occurring, the maybe man-made or planned. All these things are going to happen, and they're going to happen at once. Now, because they are happening, it is a gray swan, meaning we can't understand any of them. We don't know if any of them are going to be bad for us. We don't know if any of them are going to affect us. And then all of a sudden, if one of these crises or polycrisis breaks out, the fact of an unknown bad scenario could happen turns into what we call a black swan. I want to mention 5 things that are happening right now. These are stories. These are not things that are preposterous. This is not fear-mongering. This is the 5 stories that represent exactly what this article is showing. The godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, warns the world about AI safety. He says, no, I do not disregard the fact that we come up with something amazing when it comes to AI. And I know most of you don't realize how much AI is already impacting your life. You're utilizing it without you even knowing it. It is assisting you with your phone. It's assisting you with your television. It's assisting you with all these other devices, and you don't even know it. But he said, here's the thing. And this is the man who helped develop what AI is. He said it may be developing too fast. It may be getting too smart. And some bad players may be getting their hands on it if we don't build enough safety and security around it. If we look for conveniences and setups to make our life easier, and then all of a sudden someone corrupts AI or skews or has a biases with AI, which we have seen, how dangerous could this be for the modern man who depends on listening to artificial intelligence for everyday living? Right now, Google is starting to lose out some of its search engine ability to Grok or to ChatGPT, OpenAI. Now you think, oh, Colby, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does, because what happens is now you're using more technology and more intelligence, artificial intelligence, to help your life. And sometimes you don't even know, you're not even aware of it. When you search for things, when you look at stuff on social media, when you check out your algorithms and how they're actually formatting you, you are becoming part of this AI movement. Now, what he is saying is, if we allow our lives to be so encapsulated with AI and we don't have enough safety and security protocols set up to protect us, then I'm scared to know exactly what the next problem will be, especially for the human race when all their dependency is on artificial intelligence. Now, that's one thing. People say, oh, it could be used for good. It could be used for medicine. It could be used for law. It could be used for so many good things. And it can be. God has given us a mind of wisdom to learn how to do things better. I mean, of course, think about saws. We went from breaking trees to axing and cutting trees with manual tools to now we have power tools to do it. Makes it easier, doesn't it? Innovation is not necessarily bad. But when us as human beings, if we have not protected ourselves and we're not looking for the wisest way and the best way for us to be innovative instead of to control, then what happens is there's some bad players that could get their hands on things like this and actually cause more problems for America, for other countries. Think about it. If our life depends on AI and then all of a sudden the grid shuts down, EMP happens, all of a sudden we have a blackout. If our life is so encapsulated with technology, with the things that we've been so conveniently able to have, do you think we can make it? There's a study that shows that if an EMP blast happened or a blackout happened to a point where it's past 3 to 5 days, people would go in what they call survival mode and go back into a time of chaotic survival. Now, you don't have to believe that, but what it means is people come, every person is for themselves. And that's why we prepare. That's why we have preparedness. So you see this AI problem that is taking place. It is a good thing, but it can be used for bad if we're not careful. And when the leader and the maker of AI is saying, look, we developed it, it's a great thing. However, there's not enough security with it and safety protocols for Americans and for the world, I'm scared to see what could happen next. So that's the first one. Second one, you know, we talked about Disease X not too long ago. Disease X. What is this Disease X? I'm going to bring up 2 stories that deal with what is happening in the Congo. Here comes Disease X. A mysterious illness in the Democratic Republic of Congo has been dubbed Disease X. Now, if you remember, I talked about this vaguely the last few days, about how they don't understand this flu-like symptom that is all of a sudden actually killing people. They can't figure out what's causing it. It's amazing. Now listen to this. It says there are now 400 cases and up to 143 linked deaths to this illness from just October. Now, if you remember when we talked about this just a few days ago, it was not 400, it was like 200 and something confirmed cases and 70 something deaths. So now we're talking just a few weeks and those numbers have drastically changed and they can't figure out how to stop it or to control it. Let's keep on going in this article. The Panzi Health Zone in Kawanga province of the Democratic Republic of Congo, boy, that's a word out there, recorded 406 cases of undiagnosed diseases with symptoms such as fever, headache, cough, runny nose, body aches, and then it could be bigger as it turns into a bigger outbreak. They can't control it, and they don't know what it actually is and how to treat it. Now, this comes just a few weeks after. I want you to pay attention to this. I don't know if I'm going to share this with you. It says, highly contagious unknown virus kills 79. Now, this is just a few weeks ago. After this person there, if you could see who that is, Mr. Gates, does a rollout of these in the Congo. It may just be coincidental, but isn't it unique that he started doing some rollouts in the Congo, and all of a sudden now this disease is spreading? Just something to think about. Do your own research there to figure out. This gray swan, this polycrisis, now they're saying they can't control the outbreak anymore. Now, where does it go from there? Well, no one's shutting down transportation. Do we find this as a concern? Are we worried about this? The question is this naturally occurring polycrisis, or is this man-made? To think about. Number 3, the UN warns of the impending existential crisis that destroys crops and leaves billions facing starvation. As report reveals that 3/4 of the earth's land has become permanently drier. Now, this is a big deal. Now, not because the UN says it, but what we have come to realize is that Americans and the world do not know how to grow their own food. And what we've done is we've become dependent on a system where if herbicides and fungicides and fertilizers are not used, then the mass production of crops are not taking place. Also, we're using corn and things like that now into fuel, ethanol. We're also trying to figure out how to make crops last longer, so you see this modification of crops. What we're doing is we're taking the typical God-made seed and we're making it where it's almost not able to grow in its natural environment, in its natural form, without natural chemicals or compost. What we've done is we've developed people who cannot grow their own food. Now, why is that a big deal? Well, think about it in history, especially during the Depression times when we had what we call the Dust Bowl, where it became dry and we were tilling all these grounds and not really putting good implements back, and what we were seeing was a crisis of people not able to grow food in America, in the Midwest. Well, you've taken Ukraine out of play, which is a major harvester of wheat and grains. You have areas like Sri Lanka, and you have areas that have went around the world and have pushed this global initiative where it's actually not growing food, it's growing grass because it believes that we need a cleaner earth and that we shouldn't worry about food. It will come from a manufacturer. We see areas where, for instance, I said 2 days ago that cities, people in America, about 80% of people live in cities. 20% live rural. And of that percentage, they said less than 5% are actually growing their own food or farming for the rest of America. So if we see the fact that drought is taking place, gray swan, polycrisis, meaning we don't know if it's man, we don't know if it's naturally occurring, but ultimately we know it's drier in certain areas. Now, I'm saying this as we've had tons of rain. But one thing I've learned to do here in our area is I've learned to catch rain. I've learned to use water catchment. I've learned to make sure my gardens are lower to where the rain naturally sits where I need it to sit. I've learned to realize that sometimes we don't have the rain that we're needing. So I built raised beds. I've built hugelkultur beds, which means it holds water. Why? Because I see the severity of the fact that our food dependency does not need to be on someone else. It needs to be on me, myself, my family. If we can't provide cattle, if we can't provide sheep, if we can't provide chicken, or if we can't provide vegetation, then what we're doing is we are sitting duck waiting on someone to give it for us. I think of a little bird chirping. We live in the country, so we have a lot of little birds that chirp all the time. Well, they'll make a nest, and these little birds hatch, and then all of a sudden they are fully dependent on their mother to bring back food. If the mother brings back no food, they can't fly, they will die. Now, why does this pertain to us? Because we are sitting ducks in the cities, we are sitting ducks in suburban America, we're sitting ducks in the neighborhoods that are being built because no one knows how to grow their own food. And when people like UN warns you that the fact that the grounds are drier, the fact that people are not farming like they once were, and the fact that it could cause massive loads of starvation, you actually need to listen to this, because this is something that is absolutely true, because people do not know how to grow their own food. People have no idea the benefits of growing food and how to grow it naturally. You know why I support Survival Garden Seeds, the one that provides us seed, but the ones that we promote the most, is because they teach people how to grow it and then teach people how to sustain the seed on the back of the packet. We don't understand how valuable a cow dropping manure, which is going to give fertilizer to us for our gardens for the coming future. We don't see the value in that. If we don't start seeing the value back in the natural sources of fertilization and natural sources of food, then what we're doing is we're building a bunch of little birds chirping, waiting for their mama to feed them. And now, just like the UN said, a big portion of the world is depending on the government to come in and drop the food in their mouth. Now, you don't believe that's a bad problem. That is a huge problem. And starvation is real. Now, is it real for America yet? No, probably not. But I think back in the Bible and how Egypt had it, the Middle East had it, everybody had food, everybody had everything they needed, and then he realized we better prepare and put grains up and foods up, storage bins, because guess what? There's going to be some bad years. They never thought a drought could happen, and all of a sudden it happened for 7 years. And they looked to someone else to provide it. And of course Egypt had it because of Joseph, if you go back and read the story, but ultimately it was the people who knew how to grow and how to prepare did fine through it. It was the people who just said, oh, it's going to be okay. This crisis is fake. It's not real. That's just fear-mongering. That's kind of what is happening today. People think, oh, that's all horse mess. Well, if you're living in a suburban, not growing your own food and picking up everything from the grocery, and you think that it's going to be okay, you better start stockpiling food, because this is just another polycrisis that is a gray swan event that could easily be a black swan. Number 4, a report from the offguardian.org that Kit Knightley wrote. It was shared on Zero Hedge. It says, bird flu, the next pandemic, it's right on schedule. Isn't it amazing how all this stuff is just coming together and be a polycrisis, gray swan style events, potentially black swan events, right before Trump becomes president? Do we not find that a little unique? And so that makes me think, okay, naturally occurring or completely planned. Peter Hotez, I mentioned the other day, came out and stated that there could be a lot of problems happen when Trump becomes president. Now, how would he know that? He doesn't know that. But it's weird how all of a sudden, coincidentally, all this stuff just keeps happening. We have disease X, we have the fact of the avian flu, and now they're thinking we've got to, literally the new reports when it comes to the bird flu, we need to make sure birds, eggs, milk, cow, dairy, beef, all that is, we need to destroy a lot of it. We need to take away a lot of that access because that is dangerous. How do they sell this kind of stuff to you as Americans and us as the world? Is they sell it to this way. For your safety and your security, we're going to take these things off the shelf because you're not grown up enough to understand that these things are bad for you. Now, we'll leave all the pharmaceuticals, we'll leave all the prescription, we'll leave all the drugs, all the stuff that are bad. We'll leave the cereals, we'll leave all the genetically modified goods in the grocery, but we're going to take the naturally occurring milk, beef, eggs, and chicken away from you because they're bad for you. Isn't it amazing how we just go along with that story? How many times have you heard dairy milk that is naturally out of the cow, which we would think is raw, and that's what everybody lived on for hundreds of years? And of course, that's what we live on, personally. But why would we then believe that that is so terrible for us? That something that naturally occurs, that naturally is provided, that lasts typically 6 to 7 days in good quality, now can last in the store for months. Now that can last in the store with all this extra additive in it. And somehow that's better for you than the raw version. Same thing with honey. Same thing with butter. Same thing with anything else we talk about. How have we been so programmed to realize that, like this avian flu, oh my gosh, this is going to kill the bird population. This is going to make our eggs go up crazy. We need protection. We need the government to step in and overregulate these farms. Like all these little mom and pop farms that can't afford the regulations, they need to be gotten away with because what they're trying to do is ultimately make us all sick. Do you see how they spin that? You've not heard a good report on true small farms in a long, long time. All you hear is how evil they are, how bad the backyard chickens are, how bad it is to be self-sustainable, because that's a little weird. That's fringe stuff there. They're already programming you to say, okay, take away from the little farms because they need to be overregulated because they're going to make everybody sick. So then, therefore, the big farms can control the markets. And guess what? Those big farmers, those big ag companies, most of them are tying up to global agendas. Like, how do they do cricket farms for protein? How do they make more plant-based foods versus using this cow that's dirty? Do not miss the fact that this is an outbreak, and it could possibly be real or it could be completely speculative. But if there's enough believers, enough governors, enough liberal states to all of a sudden adhere to new policies, then it will affect your food system more than you think. Not because you believe in it, but say your governor believes in it. Say their legislator believes in it. Now, I know that a lot of you that watch from California, New York, Oregon, and Washington State, now you know good as I do that you could be as conservative as you want to be, but those states are extremely liberal. And whatever policies they set, it doesn't matter how conservative you are, they're going to try to influence the whole state to go along with it. So you're going to have to live in that even though you don't believe in it. So that's why you need to pay attention to these stories. Not because you believe in it, not because you're going to start wearing 15 things on your face, not because you're not going to stop buying chicken. It's just going to make it harder for you, more expensive for you, and that's why you should prepare and start growing your own as much as possible, especially chickens, rabbits, and eggs. I mean, chickens and rabbits, that's some of the easiest things to grow. You're providing meat and eggs, and you're not listening to the stories of how they're going to harm you. And lastly, the destabilization of the Middle East. Now, we can talk about the nuclear threats, we can talk about Ukraine, we can talk about all that. It always is going to come back to the Middle East. Now, that is biblically speaking, and that is also knowing that there's never peace in the Middle East. Well, we destabilize an area, and again, a biblical area of Damascus, and then you're going to see claims from Israel, seeing claims of the fact of Christians being persecuted and eradicated out. You're seeing claims of Russia coming in, Iran coming in, all these, and Turkey coming in. What we've done is we've built a major crisis in the Middle East. Now, more than anything, this is not naturally occurring by no means, but this is one of those things, this gray swan, this polycrisis, this situation could easily escalate. Now, Trump has already said that he doesn't want to get into it, have no desire to get into it, but let Iran threaten nuclear war over there. Let them use chemical weapons like they've used before, and see what happens. I'm telling you, this is a bigger crisis than anyone wants to admit, because what it does is it involves every big player. China is involved in Afghanistan and Iraq since we left. Russia was tied to Assad, tied to Syria, so they have interest. Turkey, who is on one of the sides of the rebels, saying, look, you don't want peace, you destroy them. And of course Israel, who's just trying to protect their border and secure it, so they're bombing one part of it too. And then sadly, there's Christians in the middle of it who lived really in somewhat of peace under Assad. Now they're going to have to figure out what to do because these militant groups are wanting to harm them. You have 5 polycrisis, 5 gray swans that are sitting right now. Now, does that mean that that's just the only 5? No. Oh my gosh, there's so much more. Did you hear China putting 90 vessels around Taiwan? I bet you didn't hear that. But China's not playing games anymore. And here we are sending some aircraft carriers over there before Trump is inaugurated. You don't think that would cause a problem? Some of our biggest aircraft carriers, which are destroyers, which are part of our fleet, is now going over to an area where China just put out 90 of its own vessels surrounding Taiwan. So we don't even talk about that gray swan. We're not even talking about the Russia-Ukraine situation. And Ukraine, I mean, again, Zelensky just said yesterday after a meeting with Trump that he doesn't think Trump has the right plan for peace. So he doesn't accept it. So a man who is wanting to escalate a war still, and NATO really backing him. there's a lot of crises happening. Now, the point of the video is not to make you fear. It's to let you see the real world that we live in. It is a fallen, dangerous place. But here's the hope in it all. If you learn to be more sustainable, just 1 or 2% or 10% more, that you say, okay, I'm going to just grow a little lettuce. I mean, I can grow that on my back porch. You literally can grow that in an apartment. I'm going to grow some microgreens. Hey, I have this little suburban yard, it's 1/10 of an acre. I can grow some rabbits. They don't make any noise, so I don't have to worry about chickens being loud or roosters being loud. Rabbits are quiet, and you can use their fertilizer to grow crops. I'm going to learn how to catch water. I'm going to learn how to, try to take the rain that God has blessed us with and utilize it so we can use it for our crops, because we realize it could be dangerous. I am going to buy some medicines online, some things like Jace Medical, some antibiotics, just in case, because all of a sudden we do see that whatever this X is and whatever this H5 is, it doesn't matter if we believe it. If it's not naturally occurring, it's more man-made. How could that impact us? I would like to have some medicine just in case. Well, I got to defend what I have, so I got to buy some things for defense for my home. I have to make sure they have food because I can't grow it, so I'm going to go ahead and buy some extra food, some freeze-dried foods, but I'm going to also learn how to stockpile better. I'm asking you to quit being the bird. Instead of being the little chirping bird, I want you to fly out and start getting the food and getting the things that you need. In the Bible, it says that God feeds the sparrow. The sparrow doesn't go without. Now, that's paraphrasing, but if you go back and look, the context is this. God always provides for us, even down to the sparrow, and we're worth way more than the sparrow. But the sparrow does not sit as an adult sparrow waiting for God to feed them. They're going to go out, and they're going to get the worm. They're going to go out, and they're going to get the fruit. They're going to go out and do the work. But God will provide. Please do not be the chirping little bird sitting in the nest waiting for someone to take care of you. If that is your mentality and you've got your proverbial head in the sand, then you can dog me out and call me a fearmonger, but ultimately I'm trying to teach you the real things that's going on in the world. I don't want you to be the chirping bird anymore. I want you to be the one to say, you know what, I am going to be proactive, not just reactive. We were all reactive, or to a point, most Americans were reactive in 2020. That's why everybody went nuts and everything went up in price. If we would learn to be proactive now and learn to take care of ourselves now, then when something does happen, when a gray swan or polycrisis becomes a black swan, a major issue in the world, it does not affect you so much because you have prepared. Now, we can physically prepare, mentally prepare, financially prepare, and then we can spiritually prepare. When we start doing those things, then the world's problems still are the world's problems, but you have a peace. Now, does that not mean it's not going to be hard? Remember, the sparrow is flying in snow and rain and thunderstorms sometimes. He's got to work hard for the worm, but the worm's always there. Now, let's take that in our own life. It's hard to grow food. It's hard to go out, like I get up at 4 a.m. and go milk some cows. It's hard to go deal with a calf that's out or a sheep that's down, or if I all of a sudden want to grow food and I can't because all these animals and all these insects are eating my plants because I'm growing them natural. It's hard. But when I try, I start really getting better, 1% at a time, 2% at a time, 10% at a time, to a point where now I'm looking at, I have gardens, I have food, I have freezers, I have freeze-dried foods. Now, that's not because I did that all in 1 year. It took a decade for me to learn any of that. Really more than that. Now I challenge you. You're coming up on Christmas, a wonderful time of the year. But there's a lot of things happening. Now next year, new year, new you, everybody wants to get all involved in the resolutions. Let's make a better resolution that we're going to keep. Let's try to be 1% better each and every month, to the point where we can start growing our own food, making ourselves healthy, not dependent on a system to where I look for everybody to provide for me. Let's say, you know what? It's not our fault that these things are happening, but if I'm better and I prepare for it, then I don't care whose fault it is because I'm going to be okay through it. That's my challenge for you. Black swan events come, naturally occurring and man-made. They come. It's the way of life, and it sucks. But if we're prepared, then we're ready to hit it head on, and we'll be okay. Be the bird flying and looking for the food, instead of the little baby bird sitting there waiting for someone to come feed you. Because I'm scared, sometimes those mama birds may not come back and feed you. Government's big. Government's great. If you like living off government, great. But one day government might not care for you as much as what you think they would, and you may be the one stranded in the bird's nest waiting for someone to come feed you. Pay attention to what's going on. Don't put your head in the sand. Don't call me a fearmonger, because all I'm trying to do is say these are the stories that's taking place right now. This is not made up stuff. This is what's happening. Now let's see that pendulum swing, and let's see for better times. Let's not look for government to fix every issue. Let's look for ourselves to fix a lot of these issues first. Thank you for watching. God bless.
Yeah.